Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Brent Donaldson, Editor-in-Chief for Modern Machine Shop. Excuse me. Today's webinar, brought to you by MachineMetrics, will explore the challenges and solutions for implementing scalable IoT solutions that can capture and drive value from your production data. If you're a manufacturer who is just embarking on a digital transformation journey, you may lack in-house technical resources, have trouble with IT-OT integration, or be unsure on how to approach the complexity of machine connectivity across multiple factory floors. In this webinar, you'll learn how MachineMetrics solves these challenges by making it simple to access actionable real-time machine data in minutes. You'll also hear how many current customers are using this data to visualize high-level analytics and quickly and easily review performance across global facilities. Today's presenter is Rutherford Wilson, who manages the MachineMetrics product roadmap and execution as Chief Product Officer. Rutherford is a passionate, accomplished product leader with leadership experience at startups and large organizations. He previously worked in preventing fraud within identity verification at Amazon. Please note that if you have questions at any time during the presentation, you can type them into the Q&A panel on your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. Also note that this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to that recording via email after we've finished. With that, Rutherford, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brent. So very nice to meet all of you. My name is Rutherford Wilson. I am the Chief Product Officer at MachineMetrics. I am going to be talking about multi-plant machine monitoring today. Oops, that was interesting. First, let me get back to my original slide. There we go. All right, that was a small interruption, but I'll be talking about multi-plant machine monitoring today, and sort of walking through, the complexities of how to get there, how to achieve it, and I'll give you our MachineMetrics perspective on the things that we think are going to be relevant to customers as they embark on this journey. So, just a little bit about myself. You heard that I spent some time at startups and also large organizations. Obviously, I spent the last 10 years kind of working at Amazon, and I was definitely in the identity space. But one of the things I wanted to talk about that is in that space, you're dealing with large amount of data, and solving the identity problem is a financial issue. So connecting how we're able to get at least the customers that I was dealing with at that company, better access, better information, faster throughput. Those all dealt with accessing large amounts of data, providing clear metrics to our customers, and also providing it in a usable, actionable way. And so creating a user experience and a digital experience that is easy to get through is sort of in my DNA. And those are some of the skills and the perspectives that I'm bringing to MachineMetrics. As an aside, interesting enough, my first job out of college was working as a consulting for discrete manufacturers. I spent time doing total quality management, for those of you who remember TQM in those days, and lean management. And I spent about 3 years consulting and trying to connect what was happening on the shop floor to the executives or the senior managers who sometimes had a different point of view of what was happening. They didn't have the right transparency. And so some of the initiatives I've been working on recently really kind of draw back to some of those things I did, about 20 years ago, into getting the executives clarity and transparency, and then listening to what the operators were telling them. It's really a key concept, because either the operators, and in our world, the machines, are telling a story about what they need and how they can make their business better. But you have to listen and you have to provide that context so it can make sense, so you can make decisions. So just before I jump into our presentation, just wanted to walk you through, what we are trying to do at MachineMetrics. Our core goal, what we live, dream about, breathe, is accelerating the digital transformation of our customers with insights from trusted real-time machine data, so you can improve productivity, you can decrease downtimes, and drive automated actions. That's really what the viewpoint of what we're trying to achieve. And some of the things I'm going to show you today will kind of give you an idea of what we're doing next in that process. So just to really talk about the challenges. Obviously, when you're going down the journey of a digital transformation, leveraging IoT, there's these manufacturing challenges that you always have. Now, I have this huge chart. I'm not going to talk to all of them, but it's really important to understand how these connect together and how you can understand where is the most important area for you to focus your time on. Tackling everything on this little diagram, plus the ones that are not there, is quite complicated. And oftentimes you can make a change, seek an improvement, but you're not really getting as much improvement as you thought you're going to get. And so being able to measure and track that is going to be important. Unplanned downtime is a key area that helps contribute to low machine utilization. And when you have that unplanned downtime, that increases your maintenance costs if that was a maintenance issue for the machine being down. But the most important part is up in that upper left quadrant is many customers just have lack of visibility of what is actually happening in our system. And so with these challenges in mind, let's sort of kind of jump into our topic of conversation. Obviously, most machinists, manufacturers out there have a lower utilization rate than they would like, or actually think that they have. Through a benchmarking report that we did with some partners, research partners on our side, we found that the average machine utilization rate was 28%. Many of our customers that we've worked with, they will say that they should be around 50, 67%, and somewhere in that range. But once they install our system on even just a handful of machines, it's a little difficult for them to understand that this rate is so low. And then they start to dig in, they can see the reasons why. Often they don't have enough resources to man all the machines to keep up with their demand. That's something that they can see. You can see that pretty much obvious. But understanding the nature of how the machines are running slower is a feedback that we can provide through our software, as well as recurring events that happen over and over again that you may not notice, because those patterns may not be something you recognize on a day-to-day basis, but it's something you can see when you're looking through the data through a historical lens. Those patterns emerge and reveal themselves. And those are some of the reasons that contribute to such a low utilization rate. So our goal is to get that percentage rate up higher and to find those areas where you can focus on. And the problem that many senior managers or executives tend to have is you have access to a lot of information, but it's not the best data. And that kind of makes you look like this. Your head is in a cloud, a data cloud, information, but it's not taking that information and turning that into either insights or prescriptions that help you make decisions about what to do next. And a lot of that is because the data that you tend to get that gets rolled up, has limited visibility into some of the problems. It doesn't have the right context kind of mapped in. So just saying that you have a low utilization rate doesn't really tell you what are the things that you can do. Another aspect is it's delayed. There's some issues that you need to deal with right away. And so real-time machine data helps provide that, but being able to surface that information across your organization is a key problem that people have. And the other part that I think is really important is it's biased. In many cases, at least when you don't have like a modern machine monitoring system, you may be using an older MES or paper and pencil, if that's where you are in your journey. And aggregating that information across an entire plant, much less across multiple plants, the information can get distorted. You may not be getting an exact picture, and you may not be able to drive or drill down into the data to understand the true nature of it, of why it is that way. And so we're seeking to solve these problems, and we're going to talk through some of these issues in this webinar. So the benefits, obviously, of doing this is to help your enterprise leaders and your managers, help them identify what are the areas where they should be focusing their investment for improvement. Just being able to see those key areas is something across an organization, across multiple plants, is a very important area. If you have a fixed amount of dollars you can spend to invest in improvements, you want to make sure you understand where those areas are. And even more important, you want to understand what is the highest value that you can get by spending your investment dollars to make some improvements. So if you're going to optimize something, you want to optimize the one that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. And the other thing that being able to perceive these data points across multiple plants is it gives you the opportunity to make decisions about where you best put in your resources. So either human resources or your demand. If you have capacity available in one plant and you have extra demand going on in another plant, these are things that you can perceive, and you can sort of make those corrections or those improvements with that use of that data. And that even goes into capital acquisitions. Is it worthwhile to buy something now, or can you move things around? So those are the benefits that we want to get to. So that's the target. That's the goal that we want to achieve. Now, there are some considerations. I'm sure many of you, since the IT, what do you call it, Industrial 4.0 IoT revolution has been going on for some time. And in the early days, there were also a number of people who started these projects, but they didn't quite get there. They failed. And just looking at this data that we received from Bain and Company in 2022, a lot of the number one reasons for failure was just the difficulty and complexity of getting your IT and OT systems integrated together. And a lot of that is many organizations just don't have the technical expertise. Some of the work, especially with doing statistical analytics, trying to perceive and find these patterns in data, requires a resource or a skill set that not every organization has. And there's a number of other reasons, but I wanted to speak to the technical expertise one for a little bit, because in many ways, being able to understand patterns in data can be very complex, and be able to understand it correctly and accurately takes a little bit of an art form. And so being able to have that sort of pre-packaged for you makes a world of difference. And so when you think about the starting another IoT project or continuing on your journey for digital transformation, you have to consider these complexities, and you need to make some decisions about choosing platforms that help, where this technology helps you overcome as much as possible. So being able to give you out-of-the-box analytics is a huge, huge, huge benefit. You may need to do more on top of that, but just to get you started and to get that full end-to-end story told, even when you connect your first machine, is a really important aspect of what's going to help make these projects more successful. In terms of just looking at some of the other reasons for failure, we talked about complexity of integration. Another aspect of that is most organizations have a wide range of machines that they need to connect. Modern machines with modern controllers that are designed with IoT in mind. Those are simpler, easier, and more error-free. Now, they're not that doesn't mean there's not complexity at all, because the kinds of operations and parts that you're building on those machines matter as well. So you can get the right information out of it. But they are easier. But most organizations still have in their fleet of CNC machines, older machines that are more complicated to connect to. And so being able to choose a platform that has the ability to connect to a larger set of those machines, and when they are difficult, to have their appropriate level of configurability so you can map that information together, is a huge benefit. So just looking at the fleet of the thousands of machines that we currently manage at MachineMetrics, roughly 70% of them are of our entire fleet. We are able to connect those machines and validate that information very quickly. Most of those machines, they can be connected in 30 seconds or less. And that's because we've expanded the breadth, even much so more recently, of the different types of machines that we have custom connectors for, where we can automatically map that data and understand it. And so that's a huge aspect to help overcome some of these challenges that many people face when they're embarking on these IoT integrations. The next one is being able to support scaling. Scaling to multiple plants is not quite, I mean, it's complex, as everyone would expect, but it introduces additional challenges. For those on the call who've experienced working with big data, there's a certain point in time where big data needs to be handled differently in order for you to pull insights. When you're connecting and pulling information, multiple points of information, multiple times a second for 100 machine at one plant, another 50 machines at another plant, another 200 machines at another plant, being able to get an aggregated view of that information requires additional technology and an understanding of how to aggregate that data together correctly. And so being able to work with partners who understand that and have designed their back-end system in order to scale appropriately, to aggregate data in an appropriate way so it can be clear when you get to this end goal of having a dashboard across multiple plants. So that's a really important aspect, and there's challenges with doing that that need to be overcome. So those are some of the considerations. I'm not going to go through everything that I have on the slide, but let's just kind of walk through these challenges that most people end up facing. So obviously, getting accurate data. You need to connect your machines, your robots, your cobots, your stamping machines that may be older. You may have QMS systems that need to be in place. These are all data points that need to be collected in order to provide that full transparency across an organization. So, and then being able to validate that information. Now, one of the things that I know that in my time here at MachineMetrics that I've seen most customers struggle with is they will connect their machines, everything's great. Run a series of parts on it and start building it, and everything's great. But over time, how they use that machine changes. And so being able to have the capability to automatically revalidate that data is a really important part of this, of making sure you have the accurate information. Because as soon as you lose trust in your data, well, the whole deck of cards starts to, doesn't fall apart, but it starts to become, it's like, I guess it's really not a deck of cards. It's more like Jenga. You're pulling out some key blocks in that Jenga stack of your IoT technology stack, and making sure you have accurate data, not just when you set it up, but when it's ongoing, as you change and as you continue to evolve. And that's a really critical part. And so understanding that just by connecting and validating your data the first time is not good enough. Having processes throughout your entire life cycle of your project as you move forward is also a key aspect that you should be considering when you choose a platform. But machine data is great. I love machine data, but it's not the entire picture. Connecting your machine data to your business context is also a really important step that must be completed. I've helped probably, me myself, I've helped about probably a little over a dozen customers in the last year start their projects and do their connections. And I noticed a pattern that is, I would say interesting, maybe it's probably troubling, but many people start by the biggest problem they want to solve is get their machines connected and start seeing that data. That data is good. And that's great. And that's wonderful. But as I've started to realize and watching how people then make decisions with that data, if they don't have that business context really tightly integrated into their business data, they lose information. And having a process to map your ERP data, your maintenance information, all into this construct is something that I think is one of the steps that should be done earlier in this process. It's not that complicated, and many of our customers do it that way. But it is an area that I think, in order to make sure that your IoT project becomes more successful, is when you set up and connect your first piece of machinery, also think about what is the program what is the part that's being run? How do you connect that to your ERP information? Even that one step gives you enough information so when you roll that up to a massive enterprise levels arena, that business context gets rolled up as well. And that's a really important part, that if you think about that after the fact, it's sort of like, just to use the Jenga metaphor again, sort of like trying to put in another block into your Jenga stack, especially at the bottom. It's one of these foundational aspects that needs to be considered earlier, or at the same time as you're doing your initial connectivity. Now, why is that important? Is because when you aggregate this data, especially when it's big data, you're looking at all this information coming from machines, your machine controllers, your PLCs, and you have to think about this. Every factory machine is sending huge amounts of information, and that information is structured and unstructured across the enterprise. And the question really is, there we go, is there enough business insight and context for you to make decisions? So I'll give you an example that one of the customers we worked with recently, who was actually beta testing some new stuff for us, we were able to discover a pattern associated with running certain parts. It was a heavy material, and through the data analysis that we put together, we were able to find this pattern that the amount of downtime that was associated with building that part was significantly higher than any other part that they were building. And because we didn't just see a lot of downtime, we saw downtime connected to a part, connected to a work order. It made the difference in terms of how you're understanding what things you can do about that. And so that context is really key and important. And as you start to get to understand and process this information, it's those connecting pieces of managing and aggregating this big data that's going to sort of make the difference between if people are going to use the system or not use the system, if it makes sense to them, or if it still is good information, but it doesn't give you enough insight to give you answers. And so that's one of the elements of aggregating this big information that becomes important. But there's another aspect, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is aggregating tons of information, lots of data, and being able to decide what data points you're going to be using or not using as you summarize this information into a single view. There's lots of backend technology that is used to make that happen and to make it performant. And so that is a big consideration when you select a partner to join you on this journey. Let's see. So once you have, and I kind of glossed over some of those issues with IoT, but those are important elements, because the end of this is this, dashboard that you can make decisions. And so your stack is going to look something like this, roughly. You're going to have your machines, they're going to be connected data through your through whatever IoT device that you use, whatever machine monitoring system you're using. That information needs to connect to either your MES, your CMMS. If you have any QMSs in place, that all has to connect to your ERP system to give you the best correct context of your information. And that's sort of the rough structure that it's going to look like in order for you to start to deliver these insights that make a difference. And so developing your analytics journey, just like anything else that you guys are familiar with, whenever you get a new jar, you've got to figure out the part. You got to design the part. You got to test it out under development, making sure you can get everything right, making sure your paths that you're making for removing chips is correct, and then you get into production. So that journey is the same across everything, and that's the same journey that you're going to take with analytics. Some of the things to consider differently when you're thinking about your analytics journey is there's different kinds of analytics that you want to be focused on. And, everyone wants to get to the end, the prescription, but you really need to kind of walk this path. And so first start with the description information. What is happening? Just getting that basic information about what is going on with your shop floor and your multiple plants is a critical step, and it's very valuable. What is your capacity? What's your utilization across various different business units? Those are really key. Additionally is diagnostic analytics. Many people think of this as being able to drill down. So if you see an issue or you see a problem, can you drill down into the data to understand what is the source of that problem? What is the root cause of that information? And so understanding why it's happening is another key piece of your analytics journey. And everyone wants to go to the predictive side of it. And it is true. That's part of the journey. I like to think of it in terms of what do I think is going to happen, as opposed to predicting, 5 months out that a machine is going to fail and I can plan for that maintenance. That is something that we've been talking about for decades at this point, and it's very complex to do that. But there are some things that are not as complex that the data can tell you. That can be predictions associated with how you're operating. And so that predictive aspect is a really important aspect that your analysts can walk you through. I'll just give you one example where we found a very cool solution. It's not fully in our product, but I hope it to be soon. Is we had a customer who just during the pandemic, they just lost a ton of resources. And so we're sitting, this is actually after IMTS, with them, and the CTO, who once was, kind of rose through the ranks, he was needed to be on the floor, basically it was all hands on deck. And so he was managing about 6 machines. And many of you have your operators, they're managing, they're paying attention to multiple machines on your shop floor. But it was really complex to figure out where he needed to be next in order to take care of that machine. So we grabbed our data, threw our predictive analysis on it, started peering into the G code. We did a number of different things, and we were able to build a custom solution for them that basically predicts when this machine is going to be done with its doing and needs some operator input, and be able to give them a timeline, a countdown for all the machines that he's managing. It's available on a kiosk, on a desktop, on a mobile. So as they're going through their day, they have more information. They can predict when that machine is going to need their attention and go do with it. Very simple, and it's not as complex as figuring out all the physics associated with maintenance, but those are some of the realistic ideas of how you can use data to predict and give you predictive analysis and help you find solutions to solve real problems. And so those kinds of forecasting future patterns in a very practical way is the way I look at the analytics journey. And then, of course, there's prescription to kind of tell you, okay, hey, this machine's been down for a long time. You need an operator. These are the things you can do. That may be further out for some business use cases, but I'll show you a few things that we think we can get closer to that to help you get that journey. But these are the ways that you should be thinking about how you're going to be using analytics. From the descriptive, the diagnostics, those are both very realistic and very easy to access today across a number of different systems. And then being predictive and prescriptive, those are the areas where you need to find the use cases that make sense for you that are actionable today. So to go through this journey, I wanted to describe how we are thinking about it at MachineMetrics. I was going to write out all the different features that become relevant, but I figured I'd just walk you through my thinking with pictures to give you kind of an example. And so here's a concept of an enterprise dashboard. I can see these tiles at the bottom of the screen that are kind of showing me what's happening at each plant that I'm operating. And the top tiles give me a bird's eye view of my utilization, my OEE, and then the components of OEE, performance and availability as well. You notice the number, I've got my mouse under here that says down 10 percentage points. What we're doing in the way that we think that this is useful, we want to give you context right away. So we built in an underlying system to baseline. So looking at historical performance, we can give a historical median for how all of your machines across all of your plants have been performing, and then set that as your baseline. And so that way you can kind of see immediately, without having to do anything, are you doing better or worse than you were the day before? And this works across all the elements of OEE, the OEE number. And we give you these filters because it's also important to kind of look at, how you did today versus yesterday, but you also want to look at how you did last week or how you did last month. And we also, so the baseline is just straight across the line over here. The secondary dotted line is how you did on a previous period. So if you're looking at today, the previous period would be compared to yesterday. If you're looking at the last 7 days, it would be how you did compared over the last 7 days compared to the previous 7 days. And so we wanted to give you that automatic context for helping you understand how well you're doing without having to calculate or do anything. It's all built into the product, and it's built day one from when your first machine is connected. The baseline data builds over time. So we're looking at a 3 to 6 month time frame for establishing a baseline. And then once you get past that time, it continues to change as you improve. So if your goal is to increase your OEE, well, you can see where your baseline is, and then each new continuous improvement activity you perform should go to increasing that overall historical baseline. So your challenge is, you always have a way of looking at, well, how well you did and comparison of how well you used to have behaved. And that's really important to set that immediate context without having to program anything. Filters allow you to navigate different parts of your business, obviously a timescale filter, but to sort by locations, regions, to give you an idea how different regions are doing. And also we call it divisions here, but just think about it. For those who know most products, you can actually do it by machine groups in our system. So you can organize machines as a business unit, and then across all of your plants, in the entire organization, you can see how one business unit is performing across everything. And so that really gives you that fast visibility to look at different components of your enterprise, which is really relevant. So now, obviously, we want to give you the thumbnail views of each plant so you can see what's specifically happening at a particular plant, and give you enough information for you to say, okay, something is running well or needs attention. And when you click on a thumbnail view, you stay on the page, but we give you more detailed information about the data specifics of that plant. Following the same conventions that we have in the enterprise dashboard, this plant level dashboard gives you those same KPIs and the same data points, but adds a few things to it. Your production volume, how many machines were active, what's your downtime for the time frame that you selected. So it makes that easy. And now, I mentioned before that it's important, at least for diagnostic information or diagnostic analytics, to be able to drill down into it. Well, I can go to another plant and get that same quick view, or I can drill into the plant itself and get my company plant level dashboard. And here's where I give you different information. And I think this starts to really give you better insights. Again, your classic KPIs, your production volume, activity of what's going on with your machines. But most importantly is for your machines that are operating within this time frame that you selected, which ones have a utilization lower than their baseline. That's automatic information that we want to present and surface to you so you can start to dig into why that is. So if I look at lathe 4, historically, it performs at 75%. And that's the historical baseline. And currently, in this time frame that I selected, it's only performing 60%. So it's down. So why? Same thing with my CNC3. This is my performer. This is my star. This is probably where I run probably most of my stuff because I keep it up at 95%. And so this is when I really care about. If it's performing at that 75%, typically utilization, that machine is making money. And then now it's performing at 70%. Well, I want to know why. So I can also click into the machine and get that same sort of pull out information where I can start to drill into this data. I'm going to click on this. In this particular view, I can actually now go down to the machine aspects, and I can start to click through to see what's going on with my utilization, how my downtime is operating, how many parts that machine is making. And I have this really cool tool that also gives me insights. So like, what is my utilization by shift over the last month? So these are, the way I call it is frequently asked questions with real-time data answers. And so that's helps give you closer to giving that understanding of, I wouldn't quite say it's a prescription, but it's giving you data to really kind of help you make those prescriptions for you. And so some of the elements of this sort of view and this sort of feel of how you can go, I'm going to just zoom back up this back way, how you can drill down from an enterprise view all the way down into the details of a machine is really important. And you can even drill down to get to the timeline where you can see exactly how many parts are being made, what timeline, whether it's in execution, whether it's idle. You can see condition monitoring information, spindle load. You can do all of that within a matter of clicks. And that is what I think is the right solution to help those executives get their heads out of the clouds and see exactly the information they care about at an enterprise view and a multi-plant view, and to be able to drill down into that information, into what exactly is happening on the machine, and doing that all in real time with a few clicks. That I think is relevant. Now, as much as I try, as much as I desire to, no product is ever going to solve every need of every customer, of every plant, of every enterprise. And I think one of the last considerations to make is being able to understand that with a strong, powerful API, that is another key aspect that you should consider when selecting a solution. So an API that can pull out all the information I just presented to you and pass it either to your business intelligence tool of choice, whether it's Tableau, Power BI, Grafana, or Clipfolio. These are having that access to grab the information and then construct it in the way that is specific and bespoke to you is a really key aspect of any platform. And so I'll just share some final thoughts. Select a product that has out-of-the-box dashboards with the KPIs you need. Sort of like that Jenga puzzle, if you don't have that information ready to go, getting to it after the fact is very difficult and very time consuming. So being able to have a product that can give you that information, give you those dashboards, even just the basic KPIs is very important, because it also helps you promote higher engagement with your senior and executive stakeholders. Being able to give them a tool that they can see what's happening and listen to the machines, listen to what their operators are telling them where the problems are, and be able to see that all the way through. That is a tool that I believe is going to help make more of these IoT projects more successful. Getting engagement across your stakeholders, especially the senior executive ones, is very important. Select a platform that can connect to new and old machines. This one is, this is just table stakes here. Most multi-plant organizations, and for that matter, single-plant organizations, will almost always have older machines that are still viable, still making money. And so being able to add them into your ecosystem, you need a more advanced, mature machine monitoring system that has the configuration necessary to connect to these older machines. And I can't stress it as much as integrating your machine data into your business context, whether it's your ERP and your maintenance information. That's a critical step that should be done early in the process. It will definitely ease your transition as you go forward, because you're getting data that you understand and makes sense in both a business context and an operational context. And make the leap to cloud systems. Many customers, surprisingly more than I expected to see, still prefer their on-prem systems. And I understand that. It's comfortable. You know it. It's on your machinery. It makes sense. But I think we've probably been around 20 years of cloud systems. They do help you with so many other aspects of this journey. Just from the technical expertise alone, having to push that off to a system that has been tried and tested as opposed to trying to build your own is a huge aspect of it. So I definitely say make the leap to cloud systems. So those are my final thoughts. Thank you for your time talking with me today. And if you have any questions, I'm ready here.
All right. Thank you so much, Rutherford. To our live audience, this is a reminder that right now is your opportunity to ask questions. Please type them into the Q&A panel. We'll do our best to answer them. We do have a couple in the queue here, so let's start with this. We have someone who is having difficulty getting their IoT projects off the ground. They say connecting machines is not the problem. Getting people to use it is proving to be a problem. How can this person be more successful next time they're trying to implement this?
Perfect question. So to your point, there's a number of different aspects that makes a successful integration. And even if everything, all the technology works, all the whiz-bang analytics, statistical processing works, if people are not using it, it's not very successful. Based on what I've seen, and I've done, one of the things, I've been in the B2B world for almost 30 years now. I've seen projects fail, I've seen projects succeed. Getting someone to use it is really because you haven't engaged them so much. And engaging them is not about, hey, trying to coax them to use it. It's about giving them something that makes a difference, that helps them with their job. So many projects, at least the ones I know I kicked off back in the day, IoT projects that are, we were technology focused. We're trying to say, hey, there's this cool new set of buzzwords, IoT, Industry 4.0, OPC all those cool buzzwords. We wanted to see how it was working, but we really didn't think about exactly who was going to benefit and how they're going to benefit. And so the experience, the digital experience, the user experience that we gave operators were substandard. The quality of the metrics that we gave senior executives didn't quite get the picture done. And so for any project to be successful, you have to really think through those aspects and select a solution that those people, those personas, those roles in your organization feel as if they're actually going to make a difference to their job.
All right. We have another audience member asking, have you done any integrations with global shop solutions?
Yes, we have. We have two ways of connecting to ERPs today. Well, really one way. With Global Shop in particular, we walk through that structure where you can just export a CSV, and we have an automatic process, a routine that pulls in that information. We need to do something a little bit differently with a couple of customers that we work with. And so we built actually a slightly more customized version for these customers. And what it does is it pulls in the information in much the similar way as a CSV extract, but it's using their APIs to do that. And then it also can pull in quality information from their system. And that really was to make sure that we got the most accurate OEE possible for those customers. And so Global Shop is a great partner. We work with them to achieve that. And that I'm taking that learning to kind of put together something that what I'm calling one-click ERP integrations. So when it's a cloud-based ERP, we have the underlying system to do one-click ERP integrations.
Very good. Next question is simply, what does your user interface look like?
Well, one of the things that I was showing you was our user interface. Let me just see if I can back up a little bit here. This dashboard is part of our user interface. This is our homepage. It gives you that plant level analytics out of the gate. And so basically everything I showed you kind of clicks through this whole process, allows you to click through to the machine and give you this clarity of information. So this is what our user interface looks like.
All right, next question. How does your system connect to the machines? Is it sensors? Is it the control? How does the system connect to the machines?
So all of the above. To be specific, for many organizations out there can connect to FANUC-based controllers fairly easily. We connect to the control. We have an automatic data mapping service that is underneath it. It's actually, I wouldn't call it machine learning. It's not quite that cool, but it's a self-learning process. So we make sure that we have the most accurate data mapping, looking at a large range of machines. And so that's all done automatically when we get it. You give us an IP address. We connect to the machine. We figure out what kind of controller it is. And bada bing, bada boom, 30 seconds later, data is coming through. We also connect to PLCs. We connect through the MT Connect. OPC UA, as well as we have a number of sensors that we connect to. Largely pretty much the whole entire suite of IFM sensors we can connect to those machines. And then we use that typically for older machines to connect them and get information out of them.
All right, looks like we have 2 more questions to go here, unless we get some more that funnel in. We've got an audience member asking, can I filter the multi-plant dashboard by business unit?
Literally the number one question that we received. So the answer is yes, you will. In today's version of the multi-plant version, you can't. I should say of the plant dashboard, you cannot, but you will definitely do it by business unit. Now, there's a caveat here is how do we define a business unit? What does that mean and how do you set that construct? Since we are aggregating machines and other robots together, we have a construct called a machine group. And that group can be anything. It's basically it's a category, it's a classification of a set of machines. So you can use that to organize machines that are in a specific business unit. You give it the name of the business unit, but you can go beyond that as well and organize it as these are a group of machines that represent a cell. And so the reporting aspect of that is you'll be able to filter so you can get that dashboard of all those great analytics for that cell or for just those machines in that business unit. So that's coming. That's coming just weeks away. It's going to be available.
Cool. All right. I think we've got our last question here, Rutherford. It is, can I compare my utilization or capacity from today to another period of time?
Yes, 100%. So out of the box, we're sort of defining that time frame for you. So if you're looking at your capacity or utilization for today, we compare that automatically in the UX to yesterday. If you're looking at it for the last my capacity and utilization over the last 7 days, we compare it to the last 7 days and so on and so forth. One of the features that we'll be releasing later this year is for you to select the time frame that you want to do your comparison for automatically. So instead of looking at, if you're looking at today's information, instead of comparing it automatically to yesterday, you could pick, Monday last, if it's Tuesday, sorry, it's Wednesday today. If I'm looking at Wednesday today, I can look at Wednesday last week. And so that's a feature that's coming later, before the end of this year. It's going to be available.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Rutherford. And with that, that concludes today's presentation. I want to thank Rutherford and the entire MachineMetrics team for making this webinar possible. I also want to thank our audience for listening in. You should receive an email with a link to the recording soon. So on behalf of Modern Machine Shop, I'm Brent Donaldson. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.